Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, November 24th, 2020 Curriculum Subcommittee of the Brockton School Committee. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and state of emergency, on March 12th, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 20. Pursuant to that order, public bodies are temporarily relieved from from the open meeting law's requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be held and will be accessible to the public via Brockton Community Access, also the Brockton Public Schools website, www.bpsma.org, YouTube, and Comcast Channel 12. The public can also access this meeting via the following link, www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. Before we review the agenda for the night, I'll call the roll to establish a quorum. Mayor Sullivan.
Here.
Okay. And D'Agostino is a yes. All right. Ms. Asak let me know she wouldn't be able to join us. Mrs. Mendez.
Yes.
Mr. Minicello. Okay. Mr. Rodriguez, I know, got stuck at work. Mrs. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
All right, we have a quorum. All right, so our agenda for the evening, presentation on school-based strategic improvement plans. We have two schools presenting to us tonight, Downey Elementary and East Middle School. So Superintendent Thomas, I don't know if you wanted to make a few comments before our presentation start.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. D'Agostino. So I want to welcome Principal Canetta from East Middle School and Principal Prowler from the Downey Elementary School. And I want to commend them and their teams for all their hard work that they have put in on their school-based sustainability plans. A lot of work goes into it, a lot of teamwork. They do get support from central office, from the Office of Teaching and Learning, and also they have a liaison from the Department of Education. So I'll have June pop in and set the table, then she will introduce our first presenter. I think it's Downey is first, I believe.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. As Mike said, you'll hear from Downey and East tonight. And as I've said in the past couple of weeks, you're going to hear similarities from each of the schools in terms of what's in their sustainable improvement plans. You'll hear how they're connected to the four turnaround practices, and that there are also unique features of each plan that are related to the individual school needs. And a good example of that is tonight, where Downey is going first. You'll hear from Principal Prowler about the Downey School's involvement with the Inclusive Academy, which is a partnership with the Department of Education. You'll hear about universal design and learning, and you'll see that this is truly interconnected to the four turnaround practices. And so when Principal Canetta has an opportunity to present, you'll hear those similarities and hear how each school has a uniqueness that's really related to individual school needs. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Principal Prowler, who I know is prepared to share her screen and has a PowerPoint for you.
All right, good evening. I'm going to try and get this up for you, so fingers crossed. Okay. All right, this is all a very good sign. Okay, so I'm going to play this for you from the beginning. Minimize this, and then just give me 1 second. I just want to make sure I have the presenter view open. Okay, So good evening. As June mentioned, I'm Colleen Prodler. I'm the principal at the Downey School. And I wanted to start off by just giving you a little bit of background. The Downey School entered the sustainable improvement process in the fall of 2019. The school is comprised of many veteran staff, many of whom have been at the school for more than 20 years. Last year, as you know, I joined the Downey staff as well as my assistant principal, Maura Mello. So it was a blending of a veteran staff and a new administrative team. One of the first things that we did in our sustainable improvement work was to partner with the state and partner with our staff to craft a revised vision statement that really captured what we were hoping to do as we move forward. We, the Downey staff, believe that all students are able to achieve at high levels through perseverance and effort. Through collaboration, teachers will use data to plan effective and rigorous standards-based tiered instruction that meets the needs of all learners within this safe and inclusive environment. Downey students will develop the academic proficiency, self-efficacy, communication skills, and empathy necessary to become lifelong learners. Briefly, just as a quick reminder, the Downey has approximately 600 students. We have integrated classrooms, K through 5. We have a vibrant life skills strand, K through 5, and we have a strand of students with emotional impairments in grades 3 through 5. So as we entered into the sustainable improvement process, one of the first things that you're charged with doing is creating a team. And when the job ad went out for the team, I had over 30 staff members who expressed interest in participating in this process. I felt that that was a huge tribute to the staff. They're, again, as I said, a veteran staff, but a very dedicated and committed staff. And so all 30 staff members became part of this team, and they attended sessions in January through March of 2020. It was about 12 hours of training and work that we began on this plan. We were able to get through our vision statement, which I just shared with you, our initial problem statements, some of the root cause, and then we were working on our strategic objectives. Some of the things that we did were, we did a protocol called Envisioning the Future. And when you're looking at envisioning the future, one of the things that you're hoping to do is determine the 21st century skills and the rigorous instruction that students will need to be successful. We considered the inclusive practices that we needed for all students. And we also wanted students to be considered active participants in their own learning. I highlighted the inclusive practices for all students because that was especially important to us, given the number of specialized programs that the Downey School currently serves. It was important to the staff to ensure that we began breaking down barriers and helping all of our students to access the curriculum and achieve at high levels. This is just another quick example of some of the work that they did. This protocol was called Portrait of a Graduate. And in this particular protocol, the staff worked in groups to define characteristics of a Downey graduate. They then sorted and combined the statements to define the key attributes of a successful graduate, which is, of course, our goal for every student. As we reviewed our assets and challenges, externally, we looked at our MCAS scores, the MCAS alt scores, vocal data for our grade 5 students, access data, attendance data, and then the 2020 TSV report, which was completed towards the end of February, just prior to the school shutting down. Internally, we were able to look at STAR assessment data, observational data, attendance data, and then also SWIS data. One of the other key components to the sustainable turnaround process is to develop a group of stakeholders and to engage them in partnering with us. The Downey School has been able to create a stakeholder group comprised of some parents, community resource officers, a community business partner, the Northeastern Savings, which is right across the street from us, and 2 educational partners, Stonehill College and the Greater Boston Jewish Coalition. We were able to meet back in February, on February the 27th, and then we had to put a pause into things, but we were able to meet as a group on November the 2nd, and we will have our third meeting on December the 14th. So as you all know, on March 12th, the Brockton Public Schools made that difficult decision to go to full remote learning due to health and safety concerns. When that happened, our school improvement work was paused. The faculty and the staff focused on providing our students and our families with access to the resources they needed, including technology, physical materials, food, and in some cases, housing. The teachers emphasized engaging students and finding ways to connect with them throughout the spring. And over the summer, a small team met with Dr. Mary Ann Palmer from the Department of Education for us to plan for our successful re-entry of students in the fall. We heavily emphasized the need to provide students with a safe, structured, and supportive environment as they came back to the Downey School. And here you can just see a few of the dates that we met. We met several times throughout July and August. One of the focuses that we worked on over the summer was to revise our PBIS matrix. PBIS, the Downey School has a vibrant PBIS program. It's something that's very near and dear to my heart. And in a remote setting, it's different, but it wasn't as different as I initially thought. So this is just an example of our matrix. At the Downey School, we show respect, responsibility, and rigor each and every day. That's the school motto. And just to give you a quick snapshot, how do we show respect in the remote world? Well, when we enter our Zoom class, we have an appropriate video background. Our audio's off. We use the chat with classmates for the first 5 minutes. Responsibility when we enter class looks like you're on time, you're ready to learn. You make sure that when you start class, your laptop is charged or plugged in. You have your materials ready. You keep any open drinks away from your computer and your keyboard. And then rigor means that you're choosing a distraction-free space. You're using your equipment as intended, and you're using kind words and faces. So we developed a matrix for entering class, teacher-led instruction, one-on-one instruction, and then independent remote learning, which we reviewed with the staff, and then the teachers also review with the students periodically. We also created a virtual Downey School, and the staff all created Bitmojis. They made Erin Phelan, who is one of our MSN teachers, made a phenomenal virtual school that has all sorts of links and activities for the kids, and it's something that they really enjoy. So as I mentioned, our first major preliminary goals were the engagement of students and then the social emotional needs of our kids. And then this was our preliminary goal, and we will be completing a sustainable improvement plan to submit in January that will be a little bit more robust. So as part of this, we have been selected to join the Tier 1 Inclusive Instruction Academy for MTSS. And that is an absolutely amazing resource that we've been afforded with. It is going to provide us with some training in UDL, which guides the design of learning practices and proactively meets the needs of all learners. It's going to help us remove barriers to learning, something we had identified last winter as being critical to the achievement for our kids. It's based on brain science and evidence-based educational practices. It leverages the power of digital technology, which in this remote setting is invaluable. It's incredibly powerful. It's a 3-year commitment, and there was no cost to the district. So what does this Inclusive Academy entail? As I said, it's a 3-year plan. In our first year, we have UDL training for our full staff, about 6 hours. We've already participated in the first 2 hours. It involves a voluntary after-school professional learning community. And we had our first session last week, and there was 14 members of the Downey staff who voluntarily participated in this outside of school hours. There's a professional book club that will be occurring in the spring, much the same way as the PLC. So it will be a voluntary after-school activity that they can use to increase their knowledge around UDL. There are graduate course offerings. There is a coaching support session. We have 3 staff who are going through the coaching support sessions as we speak. There is personalized data consultation, which happens periodically. We attended a meeting today. And then there's also monthly administrative networking sessions, which allow the administrators across the state to get together and discuss the trials and tribulations and our pitfalls and our celebrations around the inclusive work. So what we turned in, as June had mentioned earlier, is our plan speaks to the 4 turnaround practices. And please keep in mind, this is our preliminary plan. This was what we use as an entry point to get ourselves back into school. And we are currently working on a plan that will take us a little bit further. So for turnaround practice 1, our high leverage goal was to ensure that grade level teams meet weekly in a facilitated PLC work session to increase their collective capacity to plan lessons that engage the students in remote learning. And we had several benchmarks for this. 3 of them I have highlighted as we have already met those benchmarks. And then our 4th benchmark will be by December 23rd. The Sustainable Improvement Team will complete the planning process and be ready to submit our full plan to the state. For turnaround practice 2, intentional practices for improving instruction, our high leverage goal was to establish a shared understanding of the use of UDL strategies by providing ongoing professional development offerings during the year, using multiple modalities and options for staff, such as the book groups, the workshops, and the graduate courses. And we had 2 benchmarks, both of which we will meet by December 23rd. And they will be in the form of surveys. So one will be for students to identify that they strongly agree that their teachers give students opportunities to make choices during class. And then the teachers, 50%, will say they strongly agree that they understand what UDL is, as evidenced by the Inclusive Academy Participant Self-Assessment Survey, which we actually took a baseline of that in October. For turnaround practice 3, intentional practices for improving instruction, our high leverage goal was to implement an authentic and purposeful systematic data system and establish, codify, and share data to inform a continuous cycle of improvement. Our benchmark for that is slated to be completed by June 2021. All teachers will participate in monthly data meetings and will incorporate those findings into a design of a more inclusive, universally designed lesson that meet the needs of all students, and written intervention plans for all students scoring below the 40th percentile during the intervention block, as evidenced by meeting agendas and notes. We also have another benchmark that by December 23rd, 65% of our teachers say they will strongly agree. They understand why inclusive practices such as UDL are important. So that will also be happening right before the break. And our 4th turnaround practice is school culture and climate. Our high leverage goal is to increase remote engagement of all students to ensure that all students have access to asynchronous and synchronous learning opportunities. This is a critical goal for us if students are going to make meaningful academic gains this year. And for our benchmarks, we have 2 benchmarks. We have our first benchmark using the monthly engagement tracker, which we have already begun to do, focusing on attendance, engagement, and work completion. Our goal was to have by October 23rd, 50% of our kids engaged in online learning. And then by November 24th, 70% engaged. And then by December 23rd, 85% engaged. I am happy to report that at the end of October, when we initially completed this, we already had 86% of our students engaged as measured by this tracker. The teachers are currently working on November's data. So hopefully I will have continued good news to report. And then this, as again, that survey will be coming out for students in the month of December, and then we'll be able to use a lot of that data moving forward. Okay, and then I think I'm going to stop my share if you have any questions for me.
Sorry, my mouse was doing something other than
That's okay.
what I wanted
Okay.
it. So, questions from members of the committee. I see Mrs. Sullivan. So, Judy, why don't you jump in?
Okay, I'd like to thank Principal Proudler for her very thorough report. I've been attending the parent groups there for ever since I became on school committee, so 6 years, 7 years. And the parent group, you know, before she came was very small. She did implement that a parent meeting that they meet kind of when the parents are picking up. So I thought that was a great idea because the parents are already there. Sometimes it's hard for the parents when they go back home to come back. So I thought that was a great idea to have it kind of at 2, I think it was at 2:15 or something
Mhm.
before they picked up. And I don't know because I wasn't able to make those ones because of the time, but I'm hoping that more parents did attend that. I also see what Mrs. Saber McGuire means by starting to see some of the things that are the same in each presentation, like the rigorous instruction, the inclusive practices for all students. I like the way the students actively participate in their learning and the social emotional needs of students. That kind of is showing in all of these reports. And in the turnaround practice, I liked the survey that you brought up for the teachers and the students. So maybe when you come back, you might report what the survey tells.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the committee want to comment, or Mr. Sullivan?
Yes, Mrs. Proudler. Thank you for the presentation. It was excellent.
Oh, thank
I
you.
just had one question.
Okay.
In the turnaround process, how do you think it's going as the students are remote? Are they being engaged, or is it working out well?
It's getting there. Absolutely. I think that as the first couple weeks were really tough for the teachers, for the kids, and for the parents, just trying to really figure out how are we integrating Schoology and Zoom and Clever and the emails. And I think there was a lot of tears and frustration initially. But the teachers were great. The parents were phenomenal. They would come up and we would stand outside and work on it. Some of the kids even would call and they would talk to me or my assistant principal or the school administrative assistant, and they would walk through and FaceTime this. So I feel as though the last, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 weeks, that seems to have settled down, barring, you know, a power outage or something. So since that has kind of gone away, I feel like engagement has really increased and the kids are a lot more in a routine now. I mean, would I like to get them back in school? 1000%, but right now it's not safe. So I give them an awful lot of credit. They're working really hard.
The superintendent has said to us more than once that himself and all the teachers were never taught to teach remotely over the computer. And I just wanted to say, I think everybody is doing a great job, at least trying to get everything done. You had mentioned there was 85% engagement by the students, which I think is great. Keep up the good work, and thank you.
Thank you, Sullivan. Any other member of the committee want to comment on the presentation? All right, before you go, I'll just make a comment or two. And I did want to ask, and I think you kind of went around this and touched on this with Mr. Sullivan. Yeah, you talked a little bit about student engagement, which is obviously so key right now for many, many reasons. One, the learning and the academic part of it, but also student safety and well-being as well. And so I know we had some struggles in the spring with this, and the district worked very hard to engage those kids. How are things going with the Downey and engagement? Are you having, you know, are there kids that haven't engaged yet? Have you got everybody engaged?
So what happens is if we're noticing that kids aren't logging on, or are logging on and just sort of checking out. The teacher will reach out. The teacher reaches out to the kid, the teacher reaches out to the family, and then that gets sent to my assistant principal, my adjustment counselors, and myself, and then we do some reaching out to families. We might implore some of the mentors to come over and help us out, the liaisons if there's a language barrier. We invite them to come up and meet us up at the school and help us out. I'm finding that some of the things that we've been doing, so we did some materials pickup. We did a little fun Thanksgiving craft Zoom today where the parents came by yesterday, and when they picked up their meals, they picked up a little bag of ingredients, and I did a Zoom with the kids at 3:30. So things like that seem to have really helped. My assistant principal and I also, we decided that this is a family effort, especially at the elementary level. We are asking a lot of moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and siblings to really make sure kids are on and accessing. So we started really looking for at kids with excellent engagement. We did like a little raffle. And so on Friday, we had pizzas delivered to 2 different families for lunch. We talked to the parents. They were announced during weekly announcements. And then we talked to the families. And then Mrs. Mello and I were able to bring a pizza to 2 different families just as a thank you for all of their hard work and effort. And we'll do that periodically. Just any incentive that we can do to really encourage families to, hang in there with us and keep trying.
Right. Excellent. Thank you. And also, I just wanted to comment that I love that you're doing a student survey so you can get that feedback from the students about how they're doing, how's it going, what are they, what are their struggles,
I actually had a 4th grade teacher yesterday that I was visiting her classroom, and she was working on a forms with her class. So they were doing a survey in real time now that it's the end of the first quarter. And the questions were, she asked them, what do the kids think the class needs to do differently, or what can they improve on? What can the child individually improve on? I think she asked them for both ELA and math to set themselves a goal. And then she also asked them a question, what do you need different from me? What else can I do to help you out? And so they were together, but each child individually filled out that form and sent it to the 4th grade teacher so she could review them and incorporate that into her practice. And I just thought that was, as you speak of surveys, I just thought that was such a wonderful way to empower kids, engage kids, and really get some real-time feedback from them.
Yeah, and great that teacher was also willing to accept that feedback and hear that. And
absolutely.
So that's excellent. And my final question is there, in terms of support, anything that this committee can do to help?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I mean, just, the technology is that's always our biggest struggle. So any help and support we can get with making sure that our families have the infrastructure and the devices that they need and a means to get up there and get it, I guess that's number one. But
Okay.
thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time, your presentation, and I'm sure the rest of the committee would certainly join me in asking you to, let your team know that we appreciate all their hard work and everything they're doing. And we know that it's hard work and requires a lot of commitment, and we appreciate what they're doing.
I will. Thank you so very much.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Mendez, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on what you were talking about, engagement and social emotional. First of all, thank you, Ms. Pradler. I see that you guys have a large percentage on EI 3 to 5 and life skills K to 5.
Yes.
So how has that been going with trying to incorporate engagement and social emotional, especially with remote?
It's been challenging. I won't lie. It's definitely challenging. The students in my EI strands they're older. So they've actually been a little bit more successful being able to log on. There's lots of family communication, lots of conversation back and forth with not only our therapeutic support and the classroom teachers, but myself, the school adjustment counselors, with the families of the students in these classes. And I think it's just always keeping that door open and extending that offer to them and really following up, letting them know that, we miss you, we care about you, we need you here. When things are very difficult for kids, working with parents and families to come up with a way to sort of change their schedule and modify their day that makes sense for them so that they're still getting their needs met and we're following their IEP, but we're also being very sensitive to the needs of the families so that we can continue to partner with them.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Principal Proudler. Thank you and your staff. Please thank them for all of us for the hard work again that your staff does, the team from Central in supporting you. We know this is a ton of work and we appreciate all the time and effort, not only that you had to put in for building the sustainability plan, but what you and your staff have done to, get kids engaged and get ready for remote learning at the school level was amazing. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. So next we have East Middle School. And Superintendent, did you want to say anything before they get started?
No, I'll let June set the table again because members of her team work directly with East, with Principal Canetta. So, and we welcome him here tonight again and thank his team for their hard work. So I'll let June introduce Principal Canetta and they'll be off and running.
So again, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I really appreciate, Judy, that you brought up that you're hearing the similarities across all of the plans. And so those are really good listen fors. Even as you listen to Principal Canetta talk about his sustainable improvement plan a little bit different, you'll hear some differences again because Principal Canetta was brand new last year and walked into the implementation year of a sustainable improvement plan. And so he had to work with a brand new team and to really be able to connect to the work that was already in a plan that was developed by the staff and at the same time, make some strategic adjustments that made sense for the school moving forward. And again, we have Dr. Heather Ronan here tonight. She's been instrumental in joining the East team as an extension of central office this year. And I know that that's been really helpful to Jason and his team. And I just want to mention, I see Karen McCarthy still here from the district team, and she's working with a few schools because I think you saw her last week or the week before because she's also partnering with the George School. And the reason that I bring that up is just because I just like to recognize not only the hard work that everybody's doing, but also that the department has really, they have been very complimentary and supportive of the structures that we put in place in Brockton around the way that the district office supports the school plans. And that's been, I think, something that they've highlighted. In fact, there's another district that is replicating that structure. And so I want to thank them for being here and just recognize that work as well. But I know that Jason's ready to jump in. I can see him. He's still at school. So
always.
Yeah, right. And thanks, Jason.
Well, while I try and share my screen, I would like to thank Mayor Sullivan, Superintendent Thomas, and the entire school committee for inviting me to tonight's meeting. Can you guys see my screen? All right.
Yes, we can.
All right. So let's hope this works. So good evening and welcome. As you know, my name is Jason Canetta. I am the principal at East Middle School. I am not going to spend a lot of time discussing the past. However, I would like to recap where our plan originated from, and then I will try to bring you through the time chronologically to where we are right now and where we hope to be down the road. So in 2018, East scored in the bottom 10% of schools and was seen in need of turnaround. The 18-19 site visit from SchoolWorks determined some major factors that contributed to the need of turnaround. And even though the staff was working hard at East Middle School, we needed to rethink how we were educating our students for the following school year. So if we fast forward to the summer of 2019, as you heard, East Middle School started off the summer with a brand new administrative staff. All three previous administrators relocated, and the difficult part of this was implementing a plan that none of the new administrative team was a part of, which brings that immediate disconnect, right? You have a plan, however, nobody involved with the plan knows who's steering the ship now. So we were set right off the bat with some obstacles that we had to overcome. So starting off the year in September, we have our brand new administrative team, we have our current staff, and we also have some new staff who have never worked with one another. And the first item on our agenda was to hear from our staff regarding East Middle School and how the current turnaround plan pertains to the daily operations of East Middle School. And what we gathered from the feedback from our staff was that teaming was essential. We needed to create both horizontal and vertical alignment in our building, and you'll hear me say that several times this evening. We wanted our teachers to have common discussions around both the curriculum as well as about their own students. And because of this, we immediately created professional learning communities around content. And by October, our PLCs were meeting regularly. They were starting to build that culture in hopes to improve that student achievement. So continuing into the school year, establishing these team structures, they allowed for staff to understand the turnaround plan. However, it did not create opportunities to allow that school-wide vision for improvement to be heard or even discussed. So because of this, with the support of Marianne Palmer, who is our liaison for DESE, we all led the staff through each of the 4 turnaround processes, which we will discuss in later slides. And what this did was it gave the teachers an opportunity as a whole to unpack each of the standards and connect these initiatives to the challenges that we were currently facing at East. We were able to focus on what is in our control and compare that to what is not in our control. And that's extremely important when you're trying to create action plans and solutions, right? This was the important work to bring us all together so we can understand the scope of the work. We may not be happy with some of the initiatives. Some of the initiatives are tedious and very time consuming. However, we came to a consensus that we needed to execute this plan to the best of our ability and then revisit the plan at the end of the year for revisions if needed. So fast forward to the January and February months before we shut down due to COVID. Schoolworks came back to our school to complete another turnaround site visit and to give us that data and feedback. And it's the same 4 areas that you've probably heard, and we will go more into great lengths throughout this presentation. But as we briefly look at the feedback given to us by Schoolworks on each of the 4 standards, we see common areas of discussion that we even noted before Schoolworks came on site. So for the first practice, Schoolworks cited specifically that East had content-based teaming structures set. However, we did not have grade level team structures set, and that did not allow for teaming structures to improve that classroom instruction. And also, while the administrators and teachers, we worked together in those PLC teams, we still did not establish that school-wide improvement strategy and instructional practices. We understood we were lacking in these areas even before Schoolworks came on board, and we also knew that this was not going to change overnight. So what we were able to do, and I'll say this a few times, but we were able to create that schedule that allowed for both grade level and content teaming to occur. Takes a lot of shuffling, and I really personally want to thank Mrs. Costello, our associate principal, and Mrs. Concan, our guidance counselor, for all the hard work in creating our current schedule that actually to this day allows us to have that vertical and horizontal alignment. The next practice is focused on that common lesson planning and feedback. East Middle School began utilizing John Safier's high expectations teaching. We were able to establish a clear definition on effective feedback. That was our first step towards implementation. And because of this, our PLCs worked all year to improve student outcomes by developing lessons that fostered student perseverance. We were establishing a consistent instructional focus across content, which gives all members at East an opportunity to kind of share both the successes and the challenges along the way. And by using data from several sources, we were able to determine what that instructional focus would be for the year. The third practice focused on effective data collection and student success teams. And to be honest, This was very challenging for us last year, and it continues to be. And primarily the challenge was because our schedule did not allow the time to have the grade level alignment, right? We needed to create that schedule to allow both content and grade level common planning time, which we were able to do this year. And we also needed to find ways to collaborate between teachers, with special education, social emotional learning, our ESL and bilingual teachers, basically everyone involved to successfully create student-specific interventions. We need to bring them to the table so they can have constant conversations about their kids. And that was a big thing that we didn't have last year that we're able to do this year. We also needed to create avenues of communication to our student support team. You know, we have students who may be identified at risk, whether it's academically, whether it's behaviorally, or a mixture of both. And the data that's brought to the table gives this team a realistic way to create this success plan for any specific student. The fourth and final practice focuses on school culture and climate. This goes back to the idea that even though teachers work together in teams, we have yet to establish that school-wide improvement strategy and those instructional priorities, not just academically, right? What does it mean to be an East Middle School student? You know, what are the expectations for our staff and students the moment you step into the building to the moment you leave? And we really need to make those crystal clear so all the students understand what that expectation is and they can model it for one another. Because of this, we partnered with Adam Feinberg, who is the Northeast PBIS Director, to roll out PBIS, which stands for Positive Behavior Intervention Supports. The work started in February. We gave this more overarching, what is PBIS, to our entire staff. But then, as you know, March came around and we were then hit with COVID and everything was unfortunately put to a halt. So, taking into consideration all the feedback that we received, it was obvious that, you know, regardless of how new the administration team was or any of the obstacles that came with the change, at that time, it was time to start pushing our staff and students to higher levels. Any success that came from completion of any of these turnaround practices would not happen and will not happen without all the staff on the same page. So because of this, our focus became more of a unified approach so all staff could support all students as well as the plan. And with this unified approach, we believe that East Middle School will demonstrate high levels of achievement in a safe and secure environment that honors our diversity. Of course, with all of this planning, you're hit with situations that are out of your control. So we needed to take into consideration some COVID considerations for the following school year. Excuse me. So our lessons, which are now virtual, they need to demonstrate evidence of research-based instructional strategies. And how does that look in remote settings? We need to create platforms where staff can share their best practices as it pertains to delivering high-quality teaching through digital learning. Understanding that some of the procedures that we planned for this year, we're going to have to revise. We were planning on doing some learning walks in the classroom. Clearly, we're going to have to look at other ways to do these learning walks. Our instructional practice guide, so all the staff understand when we go into a class what we're looking for, that again needs to be fine-tuned because we aren't in person and a lot of these things need to change. So this has really made us pivot from where we were to where we are now. And more importantly, some of the behaviors that we're seeing in classrooms. You know, these are new challenging behaviors. These aren't the behaviors that we see in in-person classrooms. These are behaviors that we're learning on the fly that we see are becoming detrimental to the classroom, these remote classes. So how do we problem solve and tackle these situations where some of these situations are close to out of our control? So with that being said, this brings us to the summer, all right? And what a summer it was. The amount of pivoting that occurred, it was just mind-boggling. If you go back and reflect the amount of work we as a district accomplished, it's incredible. And none of this would have happened without the help and support from the school committee, from our central office, from the staff at East Middle School, our community. Taking in consideration the feedback that East received, we then wanted to focus on a consistent tracking of meeting and agenda notes, right? We want all of our meetings to be facilitated using protocols and rubrics, especially in remote learning. We have to have a paper trail of what's going on so we can go back and reflect on what was discussed and what's to happen moving forward. We needed to measure the implementation of instructional initiatives. Lesson plans, they need to be reviewed to ensure that the lesson includes objectives, differentiation, and higher level tasks. We needed to create a student support team that we discussed, as well as the proper procedures for teachers to refer at-risk students to our student support team. We also needed to start creating these academic achievement goals and these plans for our students that need some extra help and support. We needed to change our master schedule to include time for grade level clusters to regularly meet. I'll probably say this about 10 times in the meeting, but you don't understand how important this initiative really was. It was handcuffing what we could do. And now that we have that vertical and horizontal alignment, you'll see how our engagement is going up and how the communication in our community has gone up immensely. And, last but not least, we needed to create a PBIS team. This was the team that was going to help implement that school-wide focus on what it truly means to be an East Eagle. It's not just so much of saying it, it's actually doing it, going through the motions and showing what that means to be an East Eagle. Not just the students, but the staff and everyone that walks through this building as well. So another thing that we wanted to focus our attention on, especially from remote learning, are what I call the 3 C's. And this year our focus was on communication, connections, and consistency. And I'll start with communication because this is probably right off the bat something that comes to your mind when you're talking about remote learning. Communication is extremely important, right? We have done a tremendous job at East beefing up our infrastructure when communicating to the East community. To bring you back to March of 2020, when we were sending an email, we were only reaching 18% of our families. Now we are reaching over 80% of our families just by email. And this is very important because receiving emails is probably the fastest way for us to communicate to the entire community on a regular basis. We made this a huge focal point starting in March and really amped up the procedures to obtain all this information. And I know she's going to be upset when I say this, but I have to thank Lisa Grine, our main office secretary. She helped out tremendously from March to where we are now, getting all this information, putting it into our system so we can constantly reach out to our community. And because of this, now we're able to send out weekly updates, monthly newsletters, and all this information is just sent through email. And email is not the only way that we're communicating. We're communicating through Instagram, Twitter, and we're also sending texts and phone calls. So I would say close to, if not 100% of our families are now receiving our regular updates, and we have received nothing but positive feedback from the community. Connections. Without having the students in person, making those connections becomes challenging, but as a teacher going back, and I remember those connections were very important. You can assess what's going on right off the bat by just seeing a child's body language and understanding, are they engaged? But now, how do we make those connections when that person, yes, they might be in front of us on a screen, but they're not there like they used to be, like we're used to seeing in person. So you heard of the vertical and horizontal alignment. And it doesn't come in a better time than now. We are asking our grade level clusters, they meet regularly to discuss students, they look at student data, and they reach out to the students and families. That's a huge piece of the puzzle we did not have last year, which limited the supports our school could offer as a whole. We've also partnered and will continue to partner with our Champion City mentor, who does a phenomenal job reaching out to our community and building those connections. We've created a student support team that consists of our nurse, psychologist, guidance counselor, and our school adjustment counselors who meet with the grade level clusters regularly to help and support all the students, but more specifically, our students who may be at risk for several reasons. I have to bring up extra help. I know it sounds crazy to even mention. However, last year as a school, this was a struggle for students to stay after school for several reasons. And now we can offer extra help 5 days a week. This is a huge opportunity for East Middle School, and we continue to remind students and families of this opportunity, and we're starting to see students and families take advantage of this more and more. And even in remote settings, we have to recognize students. We recognize them through Student of the Month. We have honor roll celebrations. We also have something that's called the Principal's Luncheon for students. Students every term who have demonstrated academic excellence, academic achievement, and citizenship. We bring them in, we have lunch. But for me, it's an opportunity that I can hear from the students regarding the school that we're currently at, the state that we're currently at, and what we can do to help and support those students. But more importantly, how can we make school a better place for all of the students? So it's a great platform. And to be honest, anytime you feed children, they're going to deliver 10 times better. So they give us great information. It just really helps us understand from the student perspective how they see East Middle School. The next slide is to talk about consistency. This is extremely important as we teach our students about consistency daily, right? We also have to show that consistency with the delivery of our instruction, as well as with our policies and our procedures to help and support all of our students. Our attendance has dropped slightly. Last year, we were around 95%. This year, for first term, we are at 94%. And I know you don't like to see a decrease in this category, but I'm going to be honest, given the circumstances and the lack of connections with the community that we had in March of last year, where we are right now with 94%, I look at that as a win, you know, and I'm really happy to see that we are still hovering at 94%, but we need to get back to 95%. And that's a big goal for us leading into term 2. A big portion of our attendance is the consistency around grade level clusters and our student support team reaching out to those students and families for any and all questions or concerns. Tracking student performance using several platforms such as Mathia, using common assessments in math and ELA, and using our STAR assessment data that I believe Dr. Cancel explained a few meetings ago. This data is crucial when we are trying to identify all of our students, but specifically maybe some of our students who are at risk that need additional supports. The times of, you know what, we think a student needs help because of whatever, that's gone. We have to come to the table with the data to show us what the root of the problem is and what we can do to help and support that child. We've also created a period in the master schedule called a WIN block. It's an acronym for What I Need Now. This works as an academic advisory. Each child who has a WIN block, the teacher who supervises that child in the WIN block is actually a part of that child's grade level clusters. So any conversations and plans that are created within those grade level meetings, that can also be discussed with that child during that extra WIN block. So it's an added academic advisory for that student. And it's also a good way if the student is staying after school, it's a quick reminder, hey, you're staying after school for math today. It's to bring the child back to their plan so they understand and they're getting that consistent reminder of what we can do to help and support. So with all of that, and that was a lot, I would like to summarize by first with a quote that our former New England Patriots head coach, Bill Parcells, said, which is, "You are what your record says you are." And I believe our superintendent made mention of this quote in one of our previous meetings. I love sports. Most times I am using quotes from inspirational athletes. And I know Mrs. Costello, our associate principal, is rolling her eyes right now saying, here we go with another sports quote. But to be honest, since day one, I have reminded our staff that we are who we are. And I say this not to undermine the way DESE holds schools accountable or grade schools based on performance and other criteria. I say this because I know everyone is working hard, right? And being labeled as an underperforming school in the bottom 10% immediately gives you that negative connotation that work is not getting done. I want to acknowledge, though, that there is work getting done in all the hard work at East Middle School. The staff, the students, the community, our central office, and our school committee has put forth so much effort since my first days of being principal. And I've only been here for about 15 months. And I think that East Middle School has made tremendous strides since the first day I've been here. This change that we hope to see will not happen overnight. However, I am confident that if we continue to improve on all aspects of delivering a high quality education in a safe and secure environment and continue to reflect on what is working and have data be the driving force of our decision making, our rank, our classification, our grade, our record, however you want to label it, will then reflect on all the hard work and dedication that I see at East Middle School. There's always room for improvement, and that starts with me. However, I am confident with the staff that we have at East Middle School and the energy and efforts our students and the community bring to the table day in and day out, that we will continue to improve in a positive way. So with all of that, I want to say thank you. I personally am thank you for the opportunity that the school committee, our central office, the staff at East, and the East community has given me to trust me to be the building principal at East Middle School. So thank you. It was a pleasure being here this evening, and I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I am here to answer any questions you may have, and I'm going to try and stop sharing without ruining this meeting. Am I there?
You are.
Okay.
All right.
So I just want to jump in for a minute because I have the pleasure of being able to work with East. And I have to say that I am impressed with the level of detail that Jason, Melissa, Eric, and the staff over at East has really put into this plan and implementing this plan. East is known, they have been through this process before, and one thing that they're really known for is the dedicated staff that they have there. They were really, really energized to go through this process before, and because of budgetary constraints and a lot of other things that you've been hearing about year after year, they really felt like they wanted to be able to get back to where they were, and you can feel it when you see that staff and hear from that staff. And Jason and Melissa and Eric, they talk about it all the time about that the staff is really, really invigorated to start this work and to really put in those structures that they have lost over the years, and to get working. So the amount of structures and protocols and organization and artifacts that they have been able to put together in a really short time to really keep everyone focused and with their eye on the prize and with the plan at the heart of everything that they're doing, it's really been impressive. So I think that you're going to really see some great things coming from East Middle School.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, both of you. I see a hand up from Mrs. Sullivan. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, I would just like to thank Mr. Canetta and his team, Melissa Costello and the team at Central that has been working on this plan. It was a very detailed plan. It shows a lot of hard work. And I know, Mr. Canetta, you came in with the plan already started, and that's hard to do. I just wanted to point out that East has started a parent group this year that they've already met remotely. There's a lot of communication, and Mr. Canetta did detail that in his presentation. I get the emails and the voicemails from him on, everything. So it's great because I can really attest to the feedback and the collaboration with teachers. I like that part about working on helping students, and the teachers all talking about the certain students that they need to help, and all staff on the same page. And I really like that the high expectations teaching, the rigor, also showed through on this presentation. Great job, though, really. It was very thorough. I just wanted to ask Mr. Canetta a question. Are the parents aware of the remote extra help after school? Are they aware that their kids can get that? Or is that something new?
Sure. So thank you. They are aware, but we can definitely do a better job communicating that to the community. And let me see what I can do to try to get that message out in more ways than one.
Okay. Because I know that I just started seeing that, and I feel like, I don't know, because you can't really talk to a lot of parents today with the situation we're in. But yeah, because I know that was something that parents were really asking for.
Sure.
And I just wanted to ask a question about the Champion City Mentors. Okay, who are they and what do they do?
So I apologize. I could not tell you who all the mentors are, but our mentor at East Middle School, Jason, has done a phenomenal job. He works with the students, and sometimes conversations have to happen outside the classroom, just to talk about everyday routine. How's your day going? Just those bare bone minimums to start the day. So it's not so much discussion of what happens in the classroom, but it's also helping our students get from their house to their class and back to their house in a safe manner. So it's just teaching those life skills, but also just having an extra presence, another avenue for our kids to be able to go and speak to. We have staff, we have teachers, but sometimes kids might not feel comfortable going to one person or the other. And I think having a community member like Jason be that focal point really gives some of our students that trust that they can go to him for anything and everything. So I want to thank him for all of his help.
Okay.
And
he was
Judy,
a-
I can add the mentors. They're community mentors. They work in close contact with, and not close but they work in conjunction with each other, supporting our schools, working with principals, adjustment counselors, assistant principals. They work out of Sharon's office, not physically, but they report to Sharon. She's done a great job leading them. They spend a lot of time doing home visits to students that are not engaged, that the principals or assistants give them, or the adjustment counselors. So they've done a lot of home visits, not only this school year, but going back to when we got squared away in late March and through the rest of the spring. And they ran our summer program that took place outside of East and West. And I believe there was one at South, and there was one at the high school this past summer. And they ran those programs as well. So they've made great connections with kids who are not engaged, and really are struggling social and emotionally during this time. So they've really done a great job supporting our schools and supporting our families.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask the superintendent. So are they volunteers or?
No, they're employees. Yep, they're all employees that go through obviously all our hiring requirements with Corey's and fingerprints, and
Okay.
then
So
they
they're all
work directly with the
fingerprinted.
school. Absolutely.
Fingerprinted, Corey checked.
Yep.
And they're paid members of
Yes,
this.
they're paid employees. Correct. Yep.
Employees. Okay. So that would be in addition to a school adjustment counselor
Yes.
that they would be maybe helping.
They work directly with them. Yes. And then
Okay.
they do the home visits, and they also will go to court with students who are court involved. So they do go to court with our students, to, especially the students that they work closely with, to let the court know that, how the student's doing, because that's a big part when the student's court involved. Usually the student is ordered to, attend school, do all your work. So the mentors work with the adjustment counselors and the assistant deans and principals to keep track of how they're doing in school. And then the mentors will go to court and report out how things are going.
Okay. So they would be assigned certain students through Sharon Walder.
Yeah, Sharon assigns them to schools. So they usually share either 2 or 3 schools, and then they connect with students through students that they've worked with over the last few years, and also they make connections with them when they're introduced by either an assistant principal, the principal, or the adjustment counselor.
So it's new this year.
No, we've had them probably I know we've had the mentoring program for almost 10 years now.
Okay.
And we've had community mentors, probably, I would say 4 years.
Okay.
Yep.
I never realized what they did, but thank you very much for
No problem.
the explanation.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Mr. Kinetic. Thank you, Mr. Kinetic, again. And his
Thank you.
team.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan. Mrs. Mendez, I think I saw your hand.
Yeah. Thank you for your transparency in your presentation. You talked a lot about vertical and horizontal alignment, and something that you said that you were going to talk about or mention a few times in your presentation. When you mention effective data collection in student success teams and having that vertical alignment where, teachers and professionals are able to now they have like common, I think you called it common lesson planning time, not too sure, but they have common planning time. What are things that have worked and what are things that haven't, and how are you collecting that data?
Sure, that's a great question. This common planning time within our grade levels, it gives our teachers an opportunity to sit at the same table and speak about students that they all teach. And that was something that we didn't have last year. So last year, scrambling to get this information, you couldn't have those conversations. This year, teachers are able to sit there and discuss anything and everything. And I wish I could give you a one-size-fits-all approach, but there are hundreds of reasons why a child might be brought up in conversation. It could be academically, it could be behaviorally, but to have that platform, you can hear from some of the teachers. Is it an individual classroom? Is it a team-wide concern that we see? And those conversations would then lead to next steps if we involve other specialists, if we involve the parents. So a lot of our action planning and what we do next starts at that first level of discussion and the information brought to the table. You're talking about grades, you're talking about engagement. There's a lot of things that are discussed, but really those discussion points are what sends the team to look for next steps to try to help and support that child.
So I guess my follow-up question is, I don't know the amount of time. I know that the Downey, they talked about meeting 45 minutes per week. Are you guys meeting about that time? And do you think from that experience, because sometimes it could be behavioral and sometimes it could be academic, do you think it's worth increasing the time?
Sure.
If it's something that has been working so effectively?
Sure, absolutely. Our teams meet twice a week for the most part, and we do that. So one day is more discussion of the action plan. And of course, the second day is the implementation. You have to deliver that action plan. I'd be lying if I said that, 2 times a week is enough. We don't have enough hours in the day to do everything that we can. I'll be honest with you. I know that's something that people might not want to hear, but having these meetings 2 days a week and having a structured meeting will give us an opportunity to maximize results in those 2 periods. In each period, they meet for about 50 minutes. So 100 minutes a week is dedicated towards creating success plans, identifying students who may need some extra supports. And then from there, it's the delivery. How are we implementing this? How are we communicating it? And then coming back to the table to revisit, okay, this is what we discussed. This is what we implemented. Now let's come back to the table the following week and let's see what worked and what didn't work. And that's the part that you hear when you talk about data. You can't correctively assess something if you don't have the data to show whether something is or is not working. You can go on instincts. You can say, I think it is. It sounds like it is. It seems like it is. But bringing the data to the table is really going to solidify, is your plan working or does something else have to happen? And we have those conversations occur twice a week if needed, but I'm seeing them happen probably on the first day, with the second day being the implementation of what was discussed on the first day, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. And so then you talked a little bit about the BPIS trainings, how it's been postponed. So you guys only got the basic training. So when you talk about these extra supports and what's working, what's not, are the whole staff on the same page? Are they using PBIS or are you using something else at this point?
That's what our hope is. We actually started PBIS again this year. We've actually been able to have a staff member from each of our grade level clusters be a part of this team. So when we all come together as a PBIS team, we're hitting every avenue of our school. We even have a specialist on the team. We have our support staff on the team. So when we come and we create any documents or any discussions, the member of that PBIS team is the liaison for their grade level team, and they're able to go back and communicate what was discussed during that PBIS meeting. So when we do roll something out, we have a representative from each of the team, and that's where that school-wide buy-in is. These are big initiatives, and there's no way any of us can tackle these individually. So in order to really make a dent in these initiatives, we have to have a school-wide approach. In order to have a school-wide approach, we have to have voices from all aspects of our school.
Thank you.
Great. Mr. Sullivan, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Canada, I just wanted to say, it's almost hard to believe that you're only a 1-year principal over there. You seem to hit every single mark on that PowerPoint. I wanted to thank you and your staff. It's it's probably the best PowerPoint that I've seen since I've been on this committee. Thank you. And it seems to me that you were the right man picked for this job. You did an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy with the staff. We are where we are today because of the staff, but we have a lot of work to do, and we're just going to continue to push forward.
I know it has to be hard coming in when the turnaround process has already started and you're jumping into it. But just from what I hear, it sounds like you've done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and I'll finish up. First, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for your presentation. It was very informative. And of course, I want to thank you and your team. Certainly your leadership and the work that they're doing is going to make a big difference for our students. So as I say to all of the schools that are presenting to us, and I do mean this, I know I say it to all of them, but I know it's true of all of them. You're engaged in a lot of hard work, and clearly you and your team are committed to making it happen. And we certainly appreciate it, and we know that everybody's working hard, and what you're doing isn't easy, so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
A couple of things, it's funny, Mrs. Saban McGuire pointed out that we would see some recurring themes in these presentations, and that's correct. You talked a lot about high levels, push to higher levels, and we've heard a lot about high expectation learning, and the fact that everybody on staff's got to be on the same page, and that's a huge part of this. And it seems like you've got the staff buy-in behind it. We've touched a little bit upon student engagement, and it seems like you're doing a great job with communication, so I certainly want to applaud that. I mean, the difference you've made in email communication engagement from before to after, I guess, if you have to find some positives of this crazy time that we're in, that's certainly one of them, that we've improved a lot of our communication in different ways because we can't do the in-person. So I applaud your efforts there. But how are you doing overall with students engaging online and in the work in class every day? And when you find that you have some students that are struggling, again, what are you doing to be able to try and do some extra outreach to get them back in?
Sure. Great question. I'm very proud of our students right now. This is a very difficult task. It's a difficult task for our staff, for our students, and for our community. But I'm very proud of the effort that our students have shown as a whole. Just like us, we'll have our good days and we'll have our bad days. But one of the things that we continuously see is that students are engaging, and they're having their good days and they're having their bad days, but no one is forcing them to open up their laptop. No one is forcing them to log in and go to their first period class. They are choosing to open up the computer and log into their first period class. And that just shows the eagerness to be the best person in the class. And I always tell the students, I give them a task to be the hardest working in your class. And maybe some look at it as a goal or a competition, but where we were to where we are now, I'm very proud of our students, and we can only improve from there. So continue to log on, students. Parents, thank you so much for your help, and to our staff, I can't thank you guys enough. And to our central office and school committee, thank you guys for your supports.
So, and then I'm glad you also mentioned this is the first time I've heard the remote extra help. That really, and that's something actually under other business I wanted to bring up as a discussion for the committee, just to see, what was available for extra help in this mode. So I really want to applaud that you mentioned that and that you're doing that and making that available. I was really glad to hear that. That's something I had planned to ask about. So yeah, I mean, you're doing a great job. Your team's doing a great job, and really glad I know you've only been here a year, but glad to have you on our team.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jason, for your presentation. Again, thank you to your staff. Thanks to Heather and June and Teaching and Learning, Office of Teaching and Learning for supporting East. And again, but Jason, thank you to you and your staff for their hard work and everything you've put into not only the sustainability plan, but also the hard work of working with students and families during this most difficult time. But I know you have put a lot into making sure students are engaged and their parents are getting all the updated information that they need. So thank you, and we hope you have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, and you as well, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have other business. Now, I see Mr. Petronio joined us. Was that to tell us that he found some money we can invest in updating curriculum?
Unfortunately, no.
I know. I
wish he was here for that.
I know. I saw Aldo coming to a curriculum meeting. I said, "Hey, maybe he's got some big news for us."
Yeah. I think his watch is he set his watch a little bit, so he's here a little early for the next meeting, actually.
All right. So I did other business I wanted to ask, and this was a conversation I had earlier with a parent about extra help, and it's funny that East that they brought that up, that they're offering that. Do we have remote extra help opportunities happening at all of our schools already?
Yeah, I can. We can actually set up the next curriculum subcommittee. We can put that on the agenda. We can have Soraya DeBarros join us and Beth Keene through community schools, and also June and her team can be there to discuss the opportunities that we have. There are tutoring opportunities through 21st Century, and I think there are other programs as well. I can let June speak on that.
Yeah, no, we have a really robust tutoring services program going on. We have hundreds of kids participating. So, I'm happy to, again, have Soraya come and talk about what the community schools office has been able to put together. It's advertised on our website. The schools have shared this information with families. And the tutoring services are all provided by our own certified staff. So it's been something that we were not surprised, but we were really excited to see the number of families and kids who took advantage of that service. And so Soraya has the most up-to-date data about, sort of what grade levels, what age level kids are taking part in that. But it's set up really well on the BPS Brockton Public Schools website. Parents and kids can go on and set up their own appointments electronically. It's a pretty very accessible system to use. So we'll be happy to have a presentation for you on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other business to come before the curriculum subcommittee? Mayor.
Chairman, good evening, everybody. First of all, I just want to thank Superintendent Thomas and Linda Cahill. Yesterday and today, we did town hall Q&As with school employees. Last week, I did 2 days of town hall for city employees about COVID. Dr. Rick Herman was on all 4 calls. It was very, very professional. Questions were prepared by BPS employees and staff prior to it, and it was really worthwhile. We're going to continue to do this after the Thanksgiving for both city and school employees. Any questions that they have about safety and remote and process and procedure, we'll continue to answer those. So I just wanted to let everybody know that it really was successful. Board of Health, Montessor was on, again, Dr. Rick Herman, Linda Cahill, and of course the superintendent. So just wanted to share that, and we'll continue to work together. And I hope that all of you and your families have a wonderful and safe Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mayor. All right. Any other business to come before curriculum? I don't see anything. Okay, seeing none, I will end with this if it's all right. I just wanted to say that, on the many things I'm thankful for this year at Thanksgiving, our amazing Brockton Public Schools employees and staff and all at all levels, in all capacities. Certainly makes the list of things I'm thankful for. And certainly everybody who is, on this body and the administrators that work with us and, this group, I'm certainly thankful for all of you. But in that context, I have to say, I'm sure we're all very thankful for Melinda Campbell for all of the hard work she does to keep us all straight and knowing what we're supposed to be doing. And so again, Melinda, we're very thankful to have you on the team. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have
Second.
a second. We have a motion to adjourn by Mrs. Sullivan, properly seconded by Mrs. Mendez. I will call the roll. Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
All right. D'Agostino is a yes. Ms. Isak's unable to join us. Mrs. Mendez.
Yes.
And Mr. Minicello also reached out to let me know he was hung up at work. Mr. Rodriguez is also tied up at work. Mrs. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned. Have a great evening.